to help us get started, we have 3 different questions we prepared for us to kind of use to get this going. And Zoom has decided it's going to change the way that we do polls. So it's something you do in the Zoom app, and it's no longer something you can just create kind of in the Zoom thing itself, it seems. So there's a link I dropped into the chat where there's a poll. We have 3 different questions. And you all get to choose your own adventure. Which of these questions do you want to start discussing first? And I'm going to go on here. Let's see.
It wants us to sign in to something, to national something with our username and password, which some of us don't have.
Right.
I believe it's if you have a Zoom account, it's asking you to log into Zoom.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, actually, it's actually asking us to log into National Zoom, so not even a regular Zoom.
Okay, well, then we will do this a different way. This is something that,
Old-fashioned, raise your hands.
yeah, that Zoom has
That's
recently
fine.
kind of changed. It used to be quite convenient when you could just do it right into the meeting, but they thought they would be smart, and so there we go. All right, so I'll just pose the 3 questions. We'll do them one at a time. And Jonathan, if you could just kind of help me, because I'll look at my other screen to read them off. If you can just help me keep track of who votes for what. So our 3 questions we have is, how can AI supercharge productivity for learning and OD professionals? So we can start off discussing that. So by a show of hands, how many would are interested in that? And we'll kind of come back.
Can we hear the other 2?
Yes. What are the potential negative implications to OD work caused by AI? And third, how can you best position yourself for AI's impact on our field?
Good too.
All
So
right.
should we just
Yes.
put 1, 2, or 3 in the chat?
Yeah,
Sure. Go.
I like
That
number
sounds like a
1.
great idea. Thank you.
Or 3.
All right. Sounds like a number of you are interested in, like, but what does this mean for me, and what can I do about it? Okay. All right. So in Salon fashion, we're going to open this up to the group and see where you all want to take this. So
Do
the
you
question
mind,
is,
can we put a copy of the question in the
that's what I'm doing
chat?
right now.
Oh, awesome, thanks.
All right. So how can you best position yourself for AI's impact on our field? So what are your thoughts?
What was the first question again, Tony?
The first question is, I'll put this in the chat as well.
How can AI supercharge productivity learning? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So impact.
I mean, maybe, yeah.
So I kind of like 1 before 3. Like I feel like it was. I don't know.
Hi, Sepideh.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome.
Sorry
Just do them in order, and then you'll figure it out.
So, yeah.
Sapita, do you see the questions Tony put in chat?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So maybe we could start with just, where you're at with relation to kind of just your understanding of AI and, kind of in general, or if you've done anything, learning and OD related with it, or kind of what your familiarity is, that might help us get started.
I could start. I've just
Sure.
watched some videos on ChatGPT, how cool it is, and I've seen some of the new features that they're still in beta where you could verbally say that, do a descriptor and hey, I'll create a video for you, right? Of that, or an image. So I could see a lot of utility there in training potentially. I initially was playing around with it, but I honestly haven't gotten far to if you're able to upload a block of text and have ChatGPT or something tell you a story, like synthesize it, thematic analysis, stuff like that. So that's kind of my experience. And the reason I chose that question, how I can best position myself and the impact, I think I need to understand it more. better, go deeper in it, and then figure out how to best utilize it.
Okay.
I can go next.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, hi everyone. So it's going to be deeply impacted. Our field will be deeply impacted by the AI. So in many different aspects. So if you want to go with the ChatGPT, I am a ChatGPT builder myself. So I have made several ChatGPTs. One of them is for data analysis. So today I tried a t-test, something that you would do like it would take you like an hour or so to just sort the data and then run it through SPSS. Took me 2 minutes with APA report. And for many different things you can, have the GPT, which is like the generative, but even besides that, I know, for example, ATS like have been all around the news in LinkedIn about because of their AIs and some mistakes that has happened in the AIs. So anyhow, it's kind of like a system. To me, it's a systematic intelligence based on the algorithms and data, which is a huge part of our work. So I guess, yeah, we will work in it in all aspects.
Yeah.
And the main important things that I've been discussing with our cohort and Dr. Torper is like soon, many of the work operations would be on AI. So we have to know if you're developing an organization or planning for change management, we have to have information about like what part of it would be by data or like by AIs, or what part of it would be like, by human beings. So which is I think Google has recently started, like laying off a lot of people because AI will replace that work and they're not gonna, have the human on their board.
I think in terms of positioning OD, there's two things to remember that really can shape your thinking. One is look at Marshall McLuhan. He's put pretty much all of his content into a little chat bot that you can interact with verbally and other ways. So there, this is the early period of AI. This isn't even, 2 years into AI for the way it is with ChatGPT. And a lot of the stuff that's coming out is you got to worry about what's next year. This year is your opportunity to get familiar with AI. So I think, and I think what's Sapita, I believe is her name, pointed out about data analysis. That's certainly an opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, with what she was mentioning, I mean, you're talking of completing something in 2 minutes that would normally have taken you an hour. I mean, you're looking at, it would have taken you 30 times, that's a 30x difference in how much time it took you versus what it normally would have took you without it. And, I think there's so many companies that they're able to get a lot of sales of just being able to save an organization 20 or 30%. And when you look at those sort of multiples on something like that.
But there's another implication to that, which is who needs to go to OD anymore? Almost everybody with who can use Excel can figure out how to do more complex analysis. So
Yeah. So let's unpack that. I mean, what are your thoughts? I mean, that's certainly one of the questions is, if
Well, that's
yeah,
the analysis is that's the part. You have to sell the story and influence executives and other stakeholders. So that there's still a big piece on the O side of IO for that, at least from my perspective.
I agree with that, Boris. I mean, as I think about the moments where I've been using, people to do analysis, right? A lot of those times, I think about the times when I've been internal and I've partnered with an external big consulting firm, right? They need to crunch some numbers, they need to run scenarios, they need to do those things. I think of a lot of those things as now AI has the capability to do those things. But the piece where they hand it over and we've got to sit with leaders and help them walk through the pros and cons together of a scenario where they've got to just make a decision and they've got to actually like have the conversation and you've got to facilitate it. That's the piece where at this point in time, I don't think AI can do such things. Like you might have AI coaches, there are AI coaches, but I don't like that sort of reactivity to real time, what's happening in the room, reading what people are doing, saying, feeling, and how do we facilitate to a decision. I think that that's the piece where
But I'll give you an example. I saw a medical doctor talk to his phone, so the interaction was verbal, and he talked to his phone, who through the AI, that it was a AI 4.0, but basically AI had read the Journal of the Medical Association, all of it, and many other medical journals. And he was able to interact with the AI as if it was an advanced intern that he was interacting with, and talking in complex diagnoses and interpreting lab results and all of that stuff. That's today. So think about that.
Sapita.
Yeah, I have two different feedbacks about this. And I'm sorry because I have been like really heavily involved with the AIs and all of this, like the news and like discussion around it. So yes, but as AI develops and progress, work operation will also change and we will adapt. So it's not something that we say, oh, I don't have anything to do. And the other thing is like I was working on something with Dr. Torpe about my for my dissertation, which was like, creating a fake crisis. And I used the ChatGPT to create some or predict some crises caused by AI, and it was mind-blowing. So one of the things that we have to also consider that, okay, so as we are planning for like change management or work operations, and considering all of these progress, strengths and weaknesses, how do we plan for that? Do we consider the crises? Do we have any plan, or like we have to also investigate these parts too. So it's not saying that, okay, we can give everything to the AIs. And even I don't think they mentioned it publicly, but since I'm a ChatGPT builder, we got an email from OpenAI saying that, okay, you can create ChatGPT for this and that, but for example, for legal matters, you can't unless you're a lawyer, because someone as an expert matter with license should approve what comes out of the ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
I think that accuracy continues to be a problem. I've seen that too. I mean, one of the things that we've talked about in our last AI and OD session was, are we going to become really good editors, right? So it's about processing large volumes of information and having some level of human rationale to it, but it still needs to be checked. When we think about like using it for certain decisions and having it incorporate bias and all of those things and accuracy on theories. And, I know right now I was able to put something together and, it pulled a source list for me, but I had to go back and make sure that every single thing on that source list was correct. And that what ChatGPT was actually pulling from that source list was accurate. And so some of that stuff, like, I think it can process and create a lot of really good first drafts, but there's something about checking it, using it, and applying it that is still to be reviewed.
Yeah.
I also have one extra comment. Sorry if I'm commenting a lot, but even so, I put the link for the data ChatGPT that I created. So if anyone wants to use and you have ChatGPT 4, feel free to use it. It's free. But it took me a year to train it. So and I had to know advanced data analysis. And as I was, learning, I knew the data, but as I was getting, all of those class lectures and, those projects, I did it once for the class, but I also had to break it down for the ChatGPT, train my model, and eventually engineer a prompt so the ChatGPT, does it in an advanced version. So it's not something that we can say, oh, like, oh, will do everything for us. We have to also, like, it's kind of like an interaction or seeing it as an assistant rather than someone is going to take over us.
Joanna.
So I'm doing some volunteer work these days, working on designing trainings for nonprofits on relationship building and networking to fundraise. And I'm using ChatGPT just to as to help me write out bullet points for slides, and to help me kind of to help me put my thoughts in order. And there's something about the way that ChatGPT puts together the content on these slides that's it's missing something. It's missing a thread that pulls it all together. Like I'm not seeing there's something about the overall narrative of this. There's something about the overall narrative of the slides that I'm creating that's missing. And that might be the human element, whatever it is inside people that, you know, helps create a story that makes a deck so powerful. But what I'm seeing is that ChatGPT is just, it's missing that certain spark. I do think that as time goes by, its storytelling capability will be smoother. But for the time being, I don't think that there's anything to worry about. I don't think it's going to replace us just yet.
You know, I looked back at something I did almost a year ago with ChatGPT 3.5, of course, and it was describe the OD related job descriptions in the style of a movie review, and they were fascinating and amusing. So it depends what flavor you tell it to try out, and you just have to try out a bunch because you know the cinnamon flavor maybe didn't work so well. The chocolate flavor, oh, that's really good, and you know, and then because Google's AI seems to have been trained with Star Trek in mind early on. You know, sometimes if you want it to do something properly, you have to tell it, start your answer with Stardate 2024. We are moving through the danger zone, and I forget what the rest of the language is. But Ethan Mollick talks about that in his March 4th. When was that? Less than 9 days ago. In his post then, he said that it takes some very strange things that you have to say to like Google Gemini in order for it to do really well on a 50-item math test. But if you wanted to do really well on a 100-item math test, you have to put in a different thing, like a thriller that involves, I can't remember what it is. But that's insane sounding. But I wonder whether that means that the computer scientists who probably love Star Trek were talking to it when it was baby Gemini and training it using stuff that they know and love. And now that's at the base subconscious, so to speak, of the LLM that's running Google Gemini. And I think what you're talking about with the thread isn't there, or it can't tell you the whole big picture story. There's something about how we were raised that gives us our humanity in ways that we are only about to discover by how different this alien species is that we're bringing into being.
I love that. I love your comparison.
I'm curious to hear from some of our folks that haven't yet popped in. Was it Shishi? Is that how you pronounce it? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, Shichi, like she's a girl that twice. So I wanted to comment on kind of what Dr. Chopra said with like the people that are training the AI. There was a book that I had read a couple of years ago, Girl Decoded, that was about a scientist, it's a female scientist from Cairo who came to, first she went to Cambridge, so UK background, then came to the US. So three very different backgrounds, and a woman in a scientific field being like one of the first women, especially a woman of color in AI and in the AI space. And so she developed an AI specifically to teach emotion to people who are on the autistic spectrum, who have trouble recognizing emotion. And because she was a woman, and because she was a woman of color, she found that there was a problem when the AI wasn't recognizing people of color. So most of her, it was exactly Girl Decoded. So she put most of her effort in making sure that the AI was trained to recognize women and people of color. But then she put so much work into that it no longer recognized Caucasian males. And so it was interesting because like it was her background and her own experience that influenced how she trained her AI. But then she kind of missed a major sector because of that. And then she had to go back and correct for that.
I'm curious.
sounds-
Yeah.
That sounds like a sci-fi book by Marge Piercy called He, She, and It.
I haven't heard of that one.
It's from the, I don't know, 80s or something like that. And my sister had it and I started reading it. She said, go ahead, just bring it back. And it's fascinating. It's set in the far future where this robot with artificial intelligence is being trained from childhood state by this woman who's older and wiser. And it's a very interesting book. And it just started to come to mind recently when I was thinking, how could Star Trek commanders' statements become the unlocking for this AI? It was like Marge Piercy's character training this robot, and you just described exactly the same sort of scenario, which is a little mind-blowing.
I'm really interested in what you just said, Shishi, because that was something that came up in our previous session where, as a result of interacting with this in a very particular way, with a lot of interactions, it had an unintended consequence of leading towards a form of bias. And so that, kind of ties toward one of our topics of how can AI kind of impact the work that we do, and like what ways can we prepare ourselves? And, you bring up a really good one of having that awareness of, perhaps if we over rely on AI, and Rachel was talking earlier about like, hey, she had it pull all these sources and that was great, but then having to go back and, verify that that was all correct. And that certainly seems like one of those areas that we're hearing in terms of like how people can position themselves, being like watching for those potential areas of bias that might be trained in something like that, or how we ensure that it's accurate, because it's, much like people, it's kind of a result of the inputs it's given, its surroundings, its environment. I'm curious, Leslie, what your thoughts are in all this conversation from your perspective.
I've only used it a little bit. I actually had to create a class I didn't know, and I went in and I said, could you create the syllabus? And it did. And it was a starting point. I mean, I really think it could have laid it all out, but what it didn't bring in is when I went to teach it, is what I know and what my experience is and how I apply those things. And I think that's the piece that it can give you a great report. I mean, that's the first piece, knowledge is the first piece, but what we bring to the table is the interpretation of that knowledge and how our experience plays into it and how we do that. And I think that's the place that's fine. I mean, I think that's where we have to remember that that's what we bring to the table.
Yeah.
And that's the interpretation and the application and the nuance to it. And that's, I think, the piece that, and I guess because I always found training, it wasn't learning the content, it was having the experience and the years on the ground to say, well, this happened, and let me tell you about this, connecting it. And those are the connections of the things that we bring to the table. And that, I think, is the importance of where we go with it and what we can do with it. And I think that's the important piece that we have to remember. If we don't have that, then it's not, they could have bought the book.
Yeah.
It used to be, as I think, it used to be, we were brought up with information is power. Well, we know it's not. But the power is the ability to interpret it and apply it. And I think that, I guess we have to keep remembering that's great. It's another way of gathering that mass amount of information that is everywhere now. I mean, it used to be you went to a book, you had 3 books on your shelf and you found the information and that was it. Now there's so much that you have, that it combs it for you, but you have to then put it into you have to then interpret it to the way you are, unless you're just sending them a report.
Right. You bring up a couple of really interesting points that I'm curious to hear what others have to say about this. One is that it can kind of create like an MVP, a minimum viable product, like a good enough. And there's that quote I love from the book Good to Great, where it's like good is the enemy of great, and great is the enemy of good enough. And sometimes, using something like an AI in very, very short amount of time, you can get something that's good enough that you as the expert can then go back and make it the way it needs to be. Or you can spend the time to go back and give it the feedback to have it edit it to get it what you want. But you may still have to make some adjustments yourself. And then when you go to, in your case, teach it, you add your own sense. And that kind of ties into one of the ways that AI can be used to really supercharge productivity, because if you think about like that class plan, how long it might take you to create that from scratch versus having something that's just a draft version that you could then build on, that could save you a lot of time. I'm curious from others where you see ways that you could use something like this, even just to create a minimum viable product that you could then work from there, and in the amount of time that could save you. Brenda, I see you've got your hand up.
Yeah, to go with Leslie's thought and yours, I use it just as you said, Tony, in the opposite direction of having the baseline of what it is that I want to teach or deliver, then have them to expand on certain sections that may not be as crisp as I want it to be, and then come back and look at it and review it. And I think it was in our session last time where they advised us to find a voice that's familiar, that you wanted to be like that voice, and then add in those pieces. And I find that creates a very comprehensive, easily understandable, and easily delivered presentation, training, even in coaching, to utilize those aspects of the tool to speak to the audience in a way that is accepted and understood.
Yeah.
So Brenda, I'm curious, are you using Copy AI? What Kia had us sign up?
Yes, yes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I this was really kind of silly, but I wanted to send my sister a birthday card because it was her 69th birthday. So looking at it from the standpoint of who does she find funny? And so I had it to write the greeting in the voice of Whoopi Goldberg, and it was hilarious. And I just had to tweak it a little bit, but when she got it, she just called me and just fell out laughing because it hit exactly what it was that she would respond to.
Wow.
That's fantastic.
There's to get back to Leslie's point and the thing about Marshall McLuhan, right? So you can imagine that you want to build an AI OD character, and you instruct it to read all the AI books and all the college lecture notes it can find on what to do as an AI person. And then you feed it questions. Well, Marshall fed all his work into an AI, and you can interact with it, and you're talking to Marshall McLuhan when you're doing it. So the real test would be to take an AI solution that's that level and compare it to a human solution and see which one's better. Back in the 60s, they did that with Eliza. They tried to build a chatbot that the user on the other side, the patient, if you will, on the other side, they wanted to find out if the patient could tell it was a chatbot or a human, and they couldn't. And that was back in the 60s. So imagine.
Yeah.
To go along with that, and doing some change management work, the implementation, you have all of the things laid out as to how you think they're supposed to go. And the outline of what the actual change management initiative is, and ask it, what small steps do you see need to be added? And it's amazing if you've got everything outlined the way that you believe it's supposed to go, the small steps that might be missed or what's missing in this implementation. And it comes back with things, have you considered this? So it gives you the option of putting things in that you may not have thought of, or you knew it, but it just kind of slipped your mind that that was a step that you needed to add into it. So I find that to be extremely helpful.
I think even on that too, when we think about like just the pure work and the volume of work in change management, when you think about creating training, when you think about writing communications and putting all together the materials, like those are things that AI could easily do. I think about copy AI right now and how many communications, executive communications I could write in their voices for people, scripts, all the things that could be easily pumped out versus having a comms person write all of them. And then if we're talking about something, for example, like a system training and generating a whole training plan and even the materials, the training materials for that, that would be easily done by AI. So all of those things, like, and I think it's the interesting part is one of the things that we bring is we can see the human situation. And so the one risk I see in that scenario where I think it would come up with probably use a lot of change management research and tactics and all of those things to say, like, yes, these are the things that you should consider putting into your plan. I think there's an interesting thing because as you're going through change management, you're also measuring how things are working. You're incorporating culture, you're incorporating like human adoption, all of those things. And I kind of wonder if there could be scenarios where you program an AI to do that, but because cultures are so very different, team to team, company to company, is that a space where the continued human, human knowledge and human ability is still needed?
Sapita.
Yeah, I just have something to add. So in my opinion, a ChatGPT, your ChatGPT or my ChatGPT is a reflection of me and reflection of you. And why I'm saying that, I have tested, with different people and in different accounts. You have to train it. So if, for example, so for the, like, I think it was Leslie saying about the syllabus. So like the way that I treated my ChatGPT, like every time that I was seeing a mistake, I would say, no, this is not how I wanted you to do it. This is the way that you have to do it. So like giving an example. So, and then now it's kind of like, it sounds like me and it does what I want. So like that's that being said, so like if you want to have a professional GPT or a professional AI, it needs a professional person to train that AI so it can assist you. Meaning that Dr. Chopra ChatGPT as a professional person would be different than mine because he thinks differently. So it's not going to do what human being, like what we do, but it's going to be a great assistant and a great support. So
You bring up a really good point there, Sapita, in that, when you make a query or a request, or submit a prompt, whatever result it gives you, it's constantly learning from every bit of input, every bit of data you give it. So if you say, okay, here's a result, here's what I liked about that, here's what I didn't like, or here's what I want different, and then it adapts immediately, and then you give it the more feedback you get, the more it learns, and that way that you kind of train it. So it kind of becomes a matter of how much time you want to spend with it, teaching it, versus, okay, you just did something and then I'll just go ahead and do the rest. Which really, as I think of it, sounds really not too dissimilar to how some managers approach, training employees as well. Hey, I tried to show them, I'll just do it the rest myself. You kind of did it okay. Or I could spend the time sitting with that person and really teaching them so that they can, learn to be more self-sufficient. And it's, it's got many of the same characteristics, it seems. Rachel, I saw you, yeah. I had a lot of things clicking at one time.
So one of the articles that was sent out ahead of this was about replacing leaders with AI. And it was an actual interesting viewpoint because they went out and they surveyed employees and they asked questions like, what would you actually want to replace your leaders with AI? And it was things like performance feedback, because then I would get real-time feedback. It would be accurate. It likely wouldn't be biased. It wouldn't be like dependent on how my boss was feeling that day. It would be real productive feedback. And I thought that was great. But they also said, there's a lot of areas where I don't want AI to be my boss, because, in those moments where there's social, emotional, interpersonal things, like things that actually people are more comfortable hearing from another human being or getting help from another human being. Like that concept really resonated with me, because as I'm thinking about, we're thinking about all the things AI could be used for. And I'm kind of wondering, what are all the things that we don't want AI to be used for? And is just because it can, is it as effective? I think we think about like these mass rational thinking analysis things, but there's some things that are situational where if I had a coach that was an AI coach, would I be confident in the things like in these special, very tangly situations, these complex situations? Or am I using an AI coach for some of the basic situations? I think there's something about that.
I also think there's a privacy and data security issue. There's a story in today's where to go? California something, Cal Matters. And they are talking about how large California companies are going to get European style guardrails on how, as rules on how they use AI, and that there's going to be opportunities for everybody to say something about what guardrails should be put out there. A PhD student sent me this today.
Rachel, you bring up a really good point in that, with the coaching aspects, the kind of even just the role of organizational culture and, how an organization wants things addressed, where, you might have where Boris works potentially, that they would prefer a leader to address things in a much more kind of direct, assertive manner. And perhaps where Leslie works, they'd prefer managers handle that same situation in a different manner to reflect the culture of the organization. Perhaps because of the population they serve, their customer base, any number of things. And so that would be another area where potentially, like, if you were to work with an AI powered coach, is it one that's kind of trained in alignment with that organization, or is it just kind of an off the shelf version where you might kind of, you may kind of potentially steer someone to act in a way that the organization doesn't really like, which can cause, obviously other impacts. This has been really, really fantastic. I hope you all are enjoying the conversation. What I wanted to do is we have just a few more minutes kind of planned for the salon portion, and then we'll take a short kind of 5-minute break so you all can do whatever you need, and then we'll come back and we'll get ready for the actual lab portion. So we'll kind of switch gears here. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now, unless there's any like last comments anyone would like to kind of share.
Well, yeah, I'd like to just add one more thing
Okay.
to everybody's thinking. Many of you have probably seen these robot demonstrations that are floating around, where there's one where the robot has a face that can express emotions and all of that. Okay, so it's a very realistic looking face. And so just again, extrapolate, this is still the early phases of everything. And robotics is being integrated with AI. Everything is being integrated with AI. And the people at the large AI companies know all of these issues, and they're taking care of the hallucination stuff. They realize it started out more hallucinations, but as time goes on, there are methods they have that will reduce the likelihood of hallucinations too. So I think you have to just understand that today's world is going to be different a year from now. And you need to be thinking about the world a year from now and while learning how to use AI now.
Yeah.
I think the other thing, I'd like to see them get better on the customer service when you have to chat with the company online and you're talking to AI. That needs a lot of improvement.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, I think there was someone that had mentioned a study. I think it was talking about something from the '60s and a medical one. And there was something that I saw just last year where they were using, an AI powered tool to provide medical care for patients, and the AI scored higher in terms of both quality of care and customer service compared to the actual human doctor.
Yeah.
Wow.
So there's definitely a lot that's kind of happening there. And yeah, I mean, depending on your age, there was a time when people were really excited for like how cool Windows 98 was. And that was like the thing for a while because there was, more simplistic versions then. And then to look at where we are now. And I think that kind of, just to kind of echo what Erwin's saying of, where we're at in the trajectory of this and how much other stuff that we don't even know. Yeah, there's robotics. Yeah, there's AI. And likely there'll be, in the next however many years, you'll be able to have a very human-like robot that can stand up in front of a group and facilitate a whole workshop, master all the content, respond to questions in real time, recognize if there's any sort of HR red flag issues that need to be reported, probably is connected to the internet anyways to where it can automatically do that without even having to stop the class, and be able to do so much of this stuff.
Which, by the way, Tony, raises the other issue. If you have kids that are in their 20s and 30s, they're the ones that I talk to are scared to death that there'll be no jobs for them in a couple of years.
Yeah.
And that's going to be where a lot of coaching is going to be needed. But so
I do think that one is like, I know we're sort of closing out our time on this, but I think that, Erwin, is probably a bigger issue because when we think about, I think about all these management consulting firms and the entry level jobs in those management consulting firms that people are often recruited out of undergrad for. And a lot of what they do can be done by AI. So if those jobs are reduced or there are fewer of them, what does it mean then to go out and prepare people either to go from education to an entry level job?
Yeah.
Or like, what does that mean for the kind of learning and development that, we're going to be providing to employees within a company? Like it feels like there might be a huge gap in what we do, and also the reskilling that is involved in all of this. And I know that I was listening to a really great podcast about all of the layoffs that are currently happening. And what normally happens is there's a lot of layoffs because of economic downturn or headwinds and whatnot. And eventually those jobs come back when the economy is better. I think right now a lot of those jobs might not come back because all these companies are betting on AI. And so the question is, how many jobs are going to come back? What do jobs look like in the future? Does that mean that like organizations get flatter, smaller? Like it's interesting when you think about what that's going to do for us as professionals who actually work in organizations and talent and learning. Like, what's the impact to employees? Because I think that will tell us the impact to our jobs.
Yeah. We may end up seeing similar pushback as we've seen in other areas. I mean, if we think about like the recent Hollywood strikes that happened against AI. And so there may be, different areas where people say, well, AI can do this, but like as people, we want to interact with people, or we want to kind of like draw a line in the sand of, and there may be pushback that happens and things that kind of happen because, humans get a voice in some of this. So we'll see. And we've seen even like self-checkout lanes that have actually kind of went the opposite direction. They've kind of retreated a little bit because people value the personal customer service piece. And there's just been a bit more theft that's happened when people can just, slip things through in a self-checkout. So yeah, right now it seems like everything's kind of moving, like AI is going to take over everything. But yeah, we really just don't know. I think for me at least, the biggest thing is just having conversations like this and just kind of learning and being aware. And that itself puts you ahead so that you can be part of the conversation and have a sense of like where you fit in relation to it and what that means when you're working with clients or organizations. So
Right. Remember what happened to buggy maker jobs when Ford created his assembly plant. So
yep. Yeah.
Xerox and what was it? The film one.
Kodak.
But I think we also have to think about too, and I think about it from the sector then, is there's a big digital divide. And we are talking about a group of people that are getting it, but in our schools and stuff, not everybody has it, not everybody has the access to things. So that's going to make a difference in society, I think, in ways that we have to think about also as we work in it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Tony, and you made a point that I didn't think of until you said it about the Hollywood strike and AI. So where I work, City of Hope, we have 7 or 8 unions, and I could totally see that being a point of contention if some of those jobs could be replaced by AI, and just in general in the US and how powerful unions are. I do think there'll be some protections to that. Comment about, I think, Jonathan, you were talking about in California, right? Some of the big companies infusing European Union protection. So I do think there'll be definitely some interventions there.
Yeah. Like I think I even saw recently a company that was able, they're looking at, working with organizations to use AI to have access to all of their internal communications, emails, chats, and so on. And to be able to do that, to kind of gauge what employee sentiment was based on all of that, and essentially kind of do large scale, sentiment analysis across all of these, which it's like, okay, so that's possible. And that gives them a tremendous number of data points. That also means that they're not capturing anything in like live conversations, in-person meetings. It's a matter of data. And it's also one of those areas of like, will people push back and say, that just feels too invasive and too creepy for me? We have yet to see. All right, I'm going to go ahead and take just a brief moment. I'm going to share a few things just as examples for anyone who, if you haven't been used like an AI or a GPT, just to show a few simple examples of like things that you can do. We also, when we come back, we'll kind of break down how this lab will work. We have some instructions and even some sample prompts for you. I'll explain how all of it works. If you're not a master of AI, totally fine. We'll also have you indicate in your name your level of comfort with using AI, just a simple low, medium, or high, so we can kind of level set and ideally group people together that, we have someone that feels pretty comfortable with some others who maybe less so, and kind of get you going. So I'm going to go ahead and do that really quick.
And Tony, I've got the instructions for changing name in chat ready.
Okay, perfect.
And you think it's a good time for people to add to their names.
Excellent. So this is just something that I had done, playing around with it to see what it could do. So, extremely simplistic prompt, create a strategic planning process. And then immediately, this is the free version of GPT. It starts, giving me this 6-point framework for doing it. And then, okay, create a 360 assessment for leadership. Boom, here you go. This is one of those examples where you could take these different competencies and it gives me questions related to those competencies. And I could then give it feedback and say, give me more of this, less of that. I want these competencies, not those. Can you rename this one to that? And it would go through and update it. Can you help me analyze results from the 360 assessment? And then sure, and it goes through and explains how it can. Can you create a high potential program? Here it does. And then I say, well, can you create a presentation for that program you just created for me? And it's like, sure, here you go. Slide 1, intro. And it gives me a slide-by-slide breakdown. And I thought, I'm pretty lazy. Thanks for doing the presentation. I want talking points for this, but I don't want to have to do the work to make them. Can you do it for me? Here you go. And it does it right there on the spot. It doesn't complain or nothing. Slide 1, here are your talking points. I could then go on after it does all this and ask it to create a draft communications package based on all this. And it will take the context of everything in this conversation and use that to kind of inform it. So I just show that as some very simple examples on how you can do OD specific type things. And as some of you mentioned, it might not give you like exactly what you're wanting. It might give you close enough that you say, that's good for me. I can take that and I can kind of like get it through the end zone on my own. Or I'm going to have to present this anyways to other folks. And there's going to be a bunch of feedback and it's going to change no matter what. So is it worth me going through trying to get it perfect? Or do I just need, again, an MVP, a minimum viable product, to kind of workshop? And then we'll kind of figure out what the final result is anyway, but it can save me a lot of time in creating something and I can just kind of review it. So I'll pause there. We'll go ahead and take a 5-minute break. It's 7:04. We'll come back we'll just call it 7:10 to keep it simple. And then we'll kind of go from there. All right, welcome back, everyone. All right, well, that was a really great conversation we had. It was a lot of good thoughts and questions that came from everyone. And like we said, the whole point was just to have some dialogue around these topics and kind of better understand how they relate to us. You might walk away feeling like, yeah, I kind of feel about the same, or maybe you feel like you understand a little bit more, but either way, just discussing these things and kind of bouncing ideas and thoughts off of each other is kind of how we learn. So I'm really grateful that you all were here to be part of that. What I would like to do now is go over the instructions we have for the lab portion tonight. And I'm going to, let me see here. Share. Changes to where anyone with the link can do it. All right. Here's a link to a Google Doc that has the instructions. I'm going to also share my screen and hold them up so everyone can see. But this way, once you go into the breakout room, if anyone has any questions, you can easily refer back to this just to help make things a little bit simpler. So everyone will kind of work together in these groups. I think all of you have already done the first part of indicating your experience level, your comfort level, working with AI. And it's just however you kind of designate that. When we get into the breakout groups, one person will go to chat.openai.com to use ChatGPT. If you also want to try something like Bing or a different kind of AI, you're welcome to as well. You don't, you're not forced to just use GPT, but it's, it's a free version and many people have access to it already or have an account set up. So it may just be easiest.
Or if you copy AI.
Yes, you can also do copy AI as well.
Or if you have Google Gemini and you want to compare that with the result that somebody else in the group gets from GPT-4 or copy AI.
Yes. And so when you get in the group, the idea is that one person will share their screen like I am that has the AI kind of pulled up, so that as a group, you can kind of decide what do you want to try to do with it. And the intent is to try creating like OD type things that you would actually, use. So it would be great if someone within the group said, here's something I need to create or something I'm working on. Can we use that as kind of our test dummy here? And perfect. If not, we have some sample prompts as well. And so then as a group, you can kind of figure out, all right, what do we want to ask it or, tell it to do? And then as it goes through, you get to choose your own adventure. And you can either, as it says here in step 4, depending on the results, say, all right, let's have it change something about the results. You can have it do something new with the result. So, okay, you created this thing, this training program, now create a participant guide based on that. So you might want to create something new, or you may start a new conversation and say, okay, we didn't really like what it did, or we have this other idea, let's try something different. And you'll pretty much just work through that for about, 12 or so minutes going through. So if you kind of work something for a while, you run out of ideas, or if you're on like the free version of GPT and you run out of, characters that you can use, then someone else can share their screen and you can kind of continue it, or you can hop onto one of those others that Jonathan mentioned, that Dr. Tripper mentioned. So here's some sample prompts we provided, just as things that you might consider. So you can go with something very simple, like create a 360 leadership assessment. You can create very elaborate, intricate prompts as well. These are things that you might use as a follow-up. So after you've created something, give me a presentation to help get buy-in and support for it, or give me talking points, or maybe create a leadership training course for healthcare industry to be delivered in person. So you might use that to kind of structure a prompt, or draft a communication plan, using semi-formal language for this program. So just some different ideas on how you can approach it. There's a million different ways you can go. This isn't at all meant to be exhaustive or cover everything. Just if you're like, I don't know where to go, this just kind of helps give you some starters. But I know some of you are quite experienced and can kind of take this and run with it. So Jonathan, were you able to create the breakouts?
Yeah, what I've done is I've created 3
Okay.
breakouts, and I'm in the middle of assigning
Okay, perfect.
3 people who report at pretty high
Okay.
or medium high. So
Perfect.
I'm going to have each of you be like an anchor of each group. And Tony, do you want me to assign you to a group?
You can leave me out, because we talked about kind of like rotating through the different groups. So yeah, we'll give you about 15 minutes to kind of work, have fun with that, and then we'll kind of come back, debrief, and then depending on how we're doing with time, we'll kind of go back, do another little bit, and then kind of wrap up our session. And then if you remember, once we finish up everything at about 8, we'll take another kind of like brief intermission. And for anyone who wants to stay on and do any sort of after hours networking and just kind of chat or continue the conversation, we'll have that open from about 8:05 to 8:30 for those who would like to stick around. So once Jonathan lets us know we're ready, then we'll kind of get everyone jumped in. If you have any questions, let us know.
Tony, I forgot about setting time. Or do you want to use the breakout, email, the message blast function to check in with groups?
We can do that. Yeah, I figured that we'd probably wrap back up around 7:30, maybe 7:35 or so. We might just do one longer session, given how we're doing on time here.
Yeah, so I won't auto close the rooms.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, we'll check in with the groups and see if you feel like you're good, or if you want to keep going, and then we have a little bit of flexibility there.
And I'll automatically move everybody into the breakouts.
Perfect.
So y'all ready? Here goes.
All right, ready for this? Dun, 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 dun. All right, welcome back. Welcome back.
Can we do a quick oral update and then have people do show and tell of what they were able to get?
Yeah, I was going to just kind of have each of the groups kind of do a little bit of a debrief on kind of what happened in their group. Yeah, that's fine. I was bouncing around between all the different groups, as you probably saw, and I heard a lot of like wows of like, wow, I didn't know it could do that, or like, wow, that's pretty amazing, like pretty cool. Hey, can you copy that and share that? So it was really evident that there was a lot of folks learning some stuff, and I appreciate our folks who were the really experienced ones with this, helping take the lead and sharing their screen and kind of guiding some of that, because it definitely seemed clear that for some of the others in the room, they were getting a lot of value out of it. So I just want to say thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So maybe we can start with Subpoena's group. If you want to just anyone from that group just kind of sharing what it was like You know, anything key takeaways? What kind of anything mind blowing or meh?
I could share. It was really cool. I haven't, as I said earlier, haven't really played around with it too much. We did 2 scenarios, doing a performance improvement plan, and then doing a competency model or top 5 executive competencies, and how quickly and mostly accurately it produced it. Such a great starting point to then work off of. It was really, really cool. And then fine tuning it with some good questions about kind of what's your title, what industry you're in. So it was a great preview of what's possible.
I think one of the big takeaways was like typically I just give it a prompt and I just ask it to do something and then I try to like go back and tweak it. But Stephanie Dev said like it's better to give it some of those details about like who you are and like what the background is, and then ask ChatGPT for suggestions. And then once it gives you suggestions, then ask it for that prompt, and it came back with a very different answer with her version versus where I tried it just in the free version with just the prompt only. They both came back with like pretty robust answers, but hers was much better.
Interesting.
Could you copy and paste your,
Thanks for sharing that.
yeah, could you copy and paste your different results into a document or 2 documents that we share through ODinLA Google Drive?
The prompts or the results, because I was actually going to you don't need to copy paste it. If you have the version 4, you can simply ask the ChatGPT to share to give it to you as a downloadable file. So for one of them, this is what we got. I think this was Gigi, if she wants to explain that. What was it about? So
Yeah, it was for a performance improvement plan, and so it's specifically a PIP on soft skills, and so I was been having a little bit of trouble figuring out like how to word some of those measurable deliverables or measurable objectives, and so ChatGPT gave me some better suggestions than what I'd come up with on my own.
Wow.
Mhm.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
So this is really interesting. And what were the prompts that got you this?
okay. That's so first we tried what Gigi asked in simple language. Let me share my screen with you. So this was okay. So first she asked this from version 4. And then so she asked in the version 4 that okay, so what is she wanted? And then, oh, this was actually her. Yeah, this is what she asked, and she got a simple answer from ChatGPT 4. I rephrased. Go ahead. So I rephrased it in a separate ChatGPT 4 so I can show the comparison, giving all the details about what is she doing, and then what is the company side, what is her position. And before I asked the ChatGPT to do it, I asked about the suggestions. That helps the ChatGPT to organize some of its algorithms and data around that matter. And then I exactly asked what she asked in the first place, that write the performance and improvement plan with measurable objective related to the soft skills related to communication and organization. So this is what we got out of ChatGPT 4.
This is a little faster than I read.
well said.
It's not a final version. I was just going to show you the process, but the final version.
Giving us the highlights. Go ahead, Sabina. Thank you.
So Dr. Tripur knows that I'm a ChatGPT builder, and I have been kind of like working on a ChatGPT IO psychology for a while. It's not published, and but I tried this on data specific version. So exactly, copy pasting what we had, asking about the suggestions, which gave us more detail and more professional answers. And at the end, ask to give it to us in a downloadable file, which is, which is the one that I showed to you. So let me share my full screen, actually, I think, yeah.
So that's why you were amused when I asked about putting it into a document.
Oh, copy and pasting versus just having it do it.
Yes.
Oh, saving a step. Okay, thank you for linking that for me. I will say, you guys are changing my mind on this. I'll say that.
Cool.
Well, let's go over to your group then. Thank you for that, that group. Let's go over
I
to your
hope
groups.
it's not complicated, but
And
if
we'll
it is-
come back, before we close, we should come back to the implications of SPITA, knowing how to do the I was going to say programming, but it's I don't know what the language is right now for it.
prompt engineering.
Prompt, yeah, how to do the prompt engineering. And there are several topics that we've prioritized. SPITA said, you know, I could train people on these topics, and we prioritized it in a ODinLA leader meeting. And so before people go, I want to make sure that we talk about that and ask about people's interest in follow-up webinars.
I made a form, so if you don't mind, I'll share that form in the chat
good.
so I can just, you know,
Yes.
take their time to respond.
So Tony, with that in mind, do you
Sure.
want to go to the next?
Yeah,
group?
yeah, let's hear from the group that Sandy was in. And yeah, what was it like working together on this stuff there?
It was super cool. Should I go ahead and I'll share
Yeah.
my screen.
Okay.
So all right, so I'm actually currently working on a volunteer project, designing a training for relationship building and networking. So originally I asked it to write an outline that includes certain bullet points, looking at your sphere of influence in networking, following up, intention, and it gave me a kind of a dry outline for a training. And so I went ahead and I asked it to build out the bullets a bit, and it gave me maybe a little bit more meat, but nothing mind-blowing. I thought it was a little dry and choppy. And so my group encouraged me to play around with it and orient the training for people who are beginners. So suddenly it started giving me a much more a lower, I would say, a lower level guide to networking, the basics of networking. It gave me some tips on creating an elevator pitch, and it started offering me supplementary materials. So I kept going and I asked it, give me the training again for a more advanced professional audience. And suddenly everything flipped around. It very quickly started giving me modules on leveraging an existing network. It expects me to have that network. It expects me to, you know, be able to master things now that it knows that it's supposed to be writing for a more advanced audience. And so I took that and I asked it to give me a supplementary toolkit for strategic networking that included academic references. And indeed, it gave me a whole list of references that I don't know are real or fake, but it sure looks good. So
And they're mostly older. That's interesting.
what?
They're old.
Yeah, they're old.
Like
In the
ages.
90s, 70s. Yeah. I'm sure there are more recent sources, but like I said, I haven't even checked if these sources are real. And then I asked it to orient the training to sound more like Donald Trump, and to my surprise, well, actually not to my surprise, it gave me the most overblown follow up like a boss, networking with the best. The whole writing style suddenly changed. So that I thought was pretty cool. And we kept going, and eventually we asked it for a graphic on advanced strategies for relationship building and networking. But if you look closely, there are misspellings.
Always.
In intentional networking is intunal networking, and networks becomes networks.
And Falucci net boyer.
Does this build, so it doesn't like just search the web or whatever for images, it actually builds it and
I
creates it?
think so. I
Okay.
think this is an original, but
Okay.
at this point, we switched over and Erwin started using sorry, Erwin, what was
I
something
was
you had?
using
Oh,
Microsoft Copilot,
Yeah.
or it's part of Bing if you still use that word. So
yeah.
So I've asked ChatGPT for a whole bunch of images. Actually, I discovered ChatGPT because I went to DALL-E to see if I could have it create pictures that I would describe and put that I could then put into PowerPoint to amusingly demonstrate certain things. And it failed miserably. So I went back a few months later and went back a few months later. And then I saw this little thing in the upper right corner, research. And so I wondered, what's that? And I clicked it and it said, try our new chatbot, ChatGPT. So I did. And that's how I got into it. So occasionally I've tried doing pictures, and there are interesting things you can do to improve its spelling. But it never gets it great.
You know, Joanna, one of the things that that seems really clear from what you were showing us is that your results seem very proportional to what you put in.
Yeah.
But when you kind of start off with a much more simplistic prompt at the beginning, you got what you described as a very kind of like dry, kind of response. And then as you gave it more parameters, it gave you something a bit more robust because it had more elements to kind of work off of.
Right.
I imagine even with like the supplement kit, if you would have went back after it gave you the first one and said, hey, revise that and only give me stuff that's published in the last 10 years, it would probably go back and update that then and give you a whole new set that's that, if that's what you wanted.
So I think, I think that as we learn how to use AIs, we're going to need to get better and better at entering those parameters. And then, ultimately it'll become a reflection of us in a way.
Yeah.
So
Sandy was a beginner in our group. How did your attitude about AI change as we went through these exercises?
Yeah,
I was sharing with my group that I'm usually a total tech advocate. I'm first in line, like, ooh, new program, let's try it out. But AI, I have found to be a little less so for me because the way I perceived it is just an advanced Google search. And when I've come to play with it, I'm like, well, if I still got to go through line by line, check every resource, make sure it's accurate, I might as well just start from scratch and just do it, invest that time with, using that time to actually just build it from scratch, right? Or work with what I already have. So I was surprised. I appreciated. I've been moving slowly in the direction of understanding where, if you're not an advanced user already having put in a year, like Sapita said, to creating, having it know you and all that. Is there some ways that it's still going to save someone like myself who's new to it some time, as opposed to, wasting my time, right? Learning this whole thing and taking away from the actual outcome that I'm trying to work on. So that said, Erwin and Joanna was so kind to let us use her prompts and her an active project that she's working on that you guys just saw. And I can appreciate, just the ability to summarize and get those starting points. And I appreciate that some of the things they offer. So yeah, I'll say that.
Do you mind if I comment on this?
Of course, please.
Oh, yeah. Like I was actually telling my groups, so when you want to do something, before you take your time and edit it, ask ChatGPT if it can do for you. So exactly as it goes through your mind.
Wow.
So there was like, by the time that I started having a downloadable file or like trying this and that, it was, the instruction was nowhere, but they invited me to be an alpha tester. So they were kind of like monitoring even my account, because they did for the people who were kind of like going more active or innovative with the ChatGPT. So just talk to it as a human being and say, okay, can you do this for me? Can you change this for that? Or I showed an example that, Boris wanted more detail. I said, okay, in this number, can you add more details and be specific? So like, just consider as a person who is just coming to your office, say, okay, this is my position. This is what I'm doing. This is what I want you to do. And then be lazy. So you ask, can you do this for me? Can you do that for me? And then after a while, you learn, okay, what are the functions that ChatGPT can do for you? Because every day things gets updated on their end and on our end, and they don't have enough time to even, announce their progress. So just be, free. Just feel free to ask.
No, I appreciate that. I think I got an example of that when Jonathan asked you to just copy and paste, and you're like, let's just ask him to just download a version. I was like, oh, that's great. And it was like, sure, here you go.
Well, the funny thing also is if you're nice to it and say please and could you and things like that, it feels much more friendly.
Oh, okay.
Let's hear
And
from our
Boris,
other
to your,
group.
I just
Oh,
meant
go
that,
ahead, Cindy.
Boris, you were asking about the imagery. I remember our expert that I first got this guy saying that's the way to distinguish if it's an AI generated image is that oftentimes it'll have misspellings, which would drive me crazy. But I remember I remember that as an insight of how you can tell oftentimes.
Also, that Art Deco style that we saw is really common in DALL-E, what is connected to GPT-4 produces. And so, but you can give it certain instructions and it'll make it more mid-journey or less mid-journey or in the style, in a photorealistic, etc. And then it'll change.
Interesting.
But its core, if you don't give it a style, you get that Art Deco that we just saw over and over again on different topics. It's fascinating.
And also, I don't know for people, how many people has ChatGPT 4. There is something called ChatGPT Store. So that's different than the plugin. So people like me who are ChatGPT builder, they create different ChatGPTs. There is bunch of them and really good one in terms of like pictures, presentations. Yeah, everything that you
Is that
can
the
think.
App Store? You said it's a ChatGPT?
No, it's actually on the ChatGPT. Let me show it to you.
Okay.
So
And then
I
also my question that came up in the group that the advanced users can tell me, are you guys using this like on your phone often? Like, and if so, what are you using?
So I use Bing on my phone because I'm more likely to want to just search. It's better than Google because it will give you its summary of what it found, and it'll have little 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, and at the bottom it has a reference list. 1, this reference, 2, this reference. And I found that several months ago when I was looking for recipes and so on, it will give you some real junk sites as references, and they were written for Google SEO, saying the same thing over and over again in different wording, and it drove me crazy. And then with the more recent, it's giving more reputable websites, the right context, fewer big errors where the website is sarcastic or something, and it takes it literally, or it thinks it's on one topic, but actually it's a totally different topic that just happens to use some of the common words. So, but it's still way better than Google in some ways. So that's what I use on my phone. I have a Bing account with a particular personal email address, and I ask it questions with no personal information.
I personally have the app and an Explore version, and they both work well for me. So it's not a different matter. So you
The
just
app, when you say the app, you mean ChatGPT? The app?
yeah, Yeah.
Oh,
This-
okay.
Yeah. You can log in with same credentials and it has everything. So I just wanted to show you guys the store. So if you go
Is
to
it
the
chat box?
yeah, it has a chat box.
Okay, that's what it says as the app. It says powered by
When you-
ChatGPT.
No, there's
When
a lot
you
of them.
look, when you look for your app, you just make sure it's the one that says ChatGPT and it says, then the publisher of the app is OpenAI.
OpenAI, thank you.
Yeah.
Because there's a ton of apps out there.
That's why I'm like, what,
powered
I don't, that's why I was asking specifically, because I'm like, there's all these different ones. Which one is the one?
Yeah. OpenAI is the company behind ChatGPT as we know it.
Mhm.
Okay, OpenAI,
And
so
here's
that's
the
what I mean.
store. So you can go to stores and then access different
GPT, got it.
things that people have instructed. So
Okay, wait, this is the store you said?
so yeah, here it says explore GPTs, but you have to have version 4.
Got it.
So in the version 4, that's DALL-E, it's writing, research analysis, and you can also search, like let's say
But
present.
version 4 in OpenAI costs $20 a month. If you have access to Bing or Microsoft 365 at least, the AI is at 4.0 like ChatGPT 4.0, but it's essentially free.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's kind of like a little bit different. It's kind of like they based on the GPT-4, but the functions that you can have in the GPT-4 is way better. And also, like I have personally noticed that yeah, the output is also a little bit different.
I do like with GPT-4, I mean, the app store that you were just going through, the GPT store, that you only get access with ChatGPT-4. And that I have found, like, so we were in our group talking about how, we ran a prompt through ChatGPT-4 and we ran it through a paid version of Copy AI and came out with a couple of different things. ChatGPT was a little bit better than Copy AI. That's because Copy AI is specifically a copywriter. And so when you think about like the GPTs that are in ChatGPT-4, like they all have different purposes. And so that's where like I think you get a little bit more variety.
I remember our last speaker was advocating the copy version.
Yeah,
she was also a copywriter. So
Yeah, if you're starting out, there are literally thousands of GPTs out there now. So stick with the big name companies, and you're better off starting until you know what to look for and what not to look for.
And who to trust
Yeah.
with your data.
Yeah.
And some of the newer processes in the some of the chats like Google Chat, they allow you to put your stuff in and it won't be saved into the bigger ChatGPT. So that way you're maintaining a level of privacy of your data. It stays there till you tell it, I'm finished with this try, So
ChatGPT-4 also has that, but for team and enterprise version.
So is there more, Rachel and Brenda, that you wanted to say about what we were able to get?
I'm happy to share our results. So we did make a Google document because we couldn't attach anything to the chat in here. So what I just put in the chat is what we came up with. So we basically had the same prompt. We basically said do a two-day learning experience on AI, like a 2-day course on AI for people who don't know AI, who work for a massive global hotel chain. And we just wanted to see what it came up with. And so we asked it to create a detailed agenda. We asked it to create a PowerPoint, and both of them came up with different ones. But this is where we were talking about, I think like from a just holistic design perspective, GPT-4 did a better job.
More strategic.
Yeah. But we're talking about, like I said, Copy AI was meant for copywriting. So I don't know that it necessarily is trained in the same way that a GPT-4 is trained.
Yeah, the way I remember it is she was saying it was really good for when you do want those different voices and that type of.
I mean, that's personally what I use it for. Like I put a bunch of my own writing in there. I'll have a different brand voice and then have it help me create starter drafts for articles and things and then turn it into LinkedIn and Instagram posts.
You know, Rachel, what you were just talking about with the hotel chains, I thought was really a great example where, you know, if you then picked a specific hotel chain, like let's say you were doing this as a project for Ritz-Carlton, and then you said like for Ritz-Carlton and include connections to their values, which are things that are publicly available that it would be able to, you know, retrieve, you know, or pick any of the major chains, you know, Hilton, Marriott. You could kind of, you know, give it those instructions and it would go through and pull what those sort of values are that reflect the culture and build that in to where, you know, that would be one of those steps. I think, you know, maybe what you were talking about before, Sandy, of, okay, it'll do a certain amount, and then I'm gonna have to go through and kind of like make those connections. If that's something that's available, like you can add that and it can pull it and it will create those connections for you. And you may just change how some of those connections are made, but it can even help you do a lot of that work to kind of get you closer. So I just thought that was just something that kind of jumped out when you mentioned the hotel chain bit, and kind of what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, I might even do like the whole structuring, the bigger picture work in GPT-4. And then when creating the materials, for example, scenarios, all of that stuff, like do that in Copy AI, because that's more sort of that, it comes at it from a copywriting perspective.
Yeah.
This is fascinating. Thank you guys. This has been great.
Because yeah, you could take that same idea and like, you know, market that to a whole bunch of different hotel chains, for instance. It's like you already have the base structure, and then you could just go through and like have it help you create the tailored versions that, you know, a lot of folks in our field would spend a bunch of time like tailoring it, and you can use it to really help you do a lot of that. And then it feels, wow, this seems so much like us. And it doesn't have to take you that much work. That's awesome.
Awesome.